After 2.5 months of hearings, reports, and testimony, we've reached the next major step of the impeachment inquiry against President Trump. The House Judiciary Committee has approved 2 articles of impeachment, making Trump only the 4th president in U.S. history to face impeachment proceedings in the House. But before the entire House votes on impeachment, let's take a step back to see how Trump's situation compares to past presidents, starting with Andrew Johnson. Johnson's impeachment was a different time, and the Judiciary Committee didn't play as important a role. In 1867, the committee conducted an investigation and ended up recommending impeachment in a 5-4 vote. The committees were much smaller back then. Interestingly, the broader House rejected that report, but the seeds of discontent were planted. When Johnson dismissed his Secretary of War next year, the House impeached him. He ended up being acquitted by the Senate. But the Judiciary Committee vote played a central role in a more modern presidency, Richard Nixon. A lot of folks have compared Trump's inquiry to Nixon's, but Nixon was never actually impeached. He resigned before the House even had a chance to vote. And that's because Nixon knew he lost support from the Republican Party, though that wasn't always the case. When the House Judiciary Committee started investigating Nixon, there was mixed support within the GOP. Following the Saturday Night Massacre, when Nixon fired Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox, several Republicans were receptive to an inquiry, but many still remained in his corner. They condemned his actions, but didn't call for impeachment.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Even some Democrats still supported Nixon. Historians believe this is because members of Congress feared repercussions with voters back home. Meanwhile, support for impeachment grew across America in the year leading up to Nixon's resignation, and the House Judiciary Committee ultimately approved 3 articles of impeachment, with only 7 Republicans breaking party lines in total. But things really reached a breaking point only a few days later, when Nixon turned over his Oval Office tapes. Once Republicans saw clear evidence that Nixon helped cover up Watergate, party leaders went to the White House to tell Nixon he could no longer survive the impeachment inquiry. He announced his resignation the next day.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
And finally, let's look at the only other example history has given us, and it's maybe the closest parallel to today, Bill Clinton. Initially, there was some Democratic support for an impeachment inquiry. 31 House Democrats voted alongside Republican members to open an investigation. But by the time the impeachment process reached this stage in Clinton's case, support and opposition for impeachment was falling almost completely along party lines. Republicans had control of the House, and the House Judiciary Committee approved 4 articles of impeachment. Clinton was initially advised to resign, but he refused and instead came out with a public apology, which satisfied leaders of his party.
I want to say again to the American people how profoundly sorry I am.
Democrats did say that the president did something wrong, but that he didn't deserve removal from office for an extramarital affair. And some of the Democrats' arguments sounded a lot like what Republicans are saying today.
There must never be a narrowly voted impeachment or an impeachment substantially supported by one of our major political parties and largely opposed by the other.
While some of today's biggest opponents of impeachment sang a different tune.
The day Richard Nixon failed to answer that subpoena is the day that he was subject to impeachment because he took the power from Congress.
The House ultimately voted yes on 2 articles of impeachment, perjury and obstruction of justice. Only 5 Democratic representatives voted against Clinton. Clinton was then put on trial in the Republican-controlled Senate, but here, not a single Democrat voted to remove him from office. They didn't reach a 2/3 majority, and he was acquitted. Impeachment is such a rare occasion in history. I mean, we only have 3 historical examples to look to. And while no president has ever been removed from office through this process, it did result in Nixon's resignation. And looking at history, what does seem to be the biggest deciding factor here is partisanship.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.